What's up, guys? Welcome back to another mini documentary. I'm here with Jay Rosario and his 2005?
2003.
2003 Blue Bayou Mitsubishi Evo 8. Me a quick story about how you got into the car scene, how you got into cars.
How everybody else got into cars, man, growing up watching the Fast and Furious, and then older heads just in my neighborhood running their Civics and their Nissans up and down the street.
Okay.
And, inspired me to want to build, my own stuff, as I got older. And then I think my first car was a 89 Hyundai XL.
Okay.
And you couldn't do nothing to that either. So basically my next one after that was a Nissan, and then when I got into the Hondas, pretty much was when, I would say, that's when it kicked everything off. I started learning about motors, wiring, swaps, and from there was that.
What caught your attention with the Honda scene and Hondas in general?
I just like how they sounded. I liked when I was 14, 15 and I rode and one of my homies up the block, as soon as that thing hit VTEC, first off it was man, this is different. It sounds good and I need this, so.
At what point did you transition from Honda to Mitsubishi though? And why did you do that?
So I used to work in Ohio at a body shop, and my first time ever actually seeing the Evo was I was working at Rapid Auto Body, and David Busher in the early years used to bring his cars in to get painted there. So the first one was actually his white Evo. I think it was called Bad Bish, and he brought it in because he had got a carbon fiber trunk and a carbon fiber hood that he wanted paint matched to the car because he wanted it just to look all stock. So I actually painted that for him, and then. The owner of the body shop at the time, Ron, he was super cool. He was like, you ever seen one of these cars? And I was like, nah. He's like, it'll do an all-wheel drive burnout. He was like, instantly. He was like, you know who this guy is, David Busher? And I was like, I was a Honda guy, so I really never heard of him. So David and Ron sat me in the car, and they did an all-wheel drive burnout in the driveway of the Rapid Auto Body, and that was my first time. I was like, oh shit, all-wheel drive, and this a badass car. So that's kind of what got me into the Evos, and this was 2006, so
that's when they barely came out, basically.
Yeah. That was my first time actually sitting in one.
And at what point did you get your first Evo? Because you've had a bunch of Evos, haven't you?
Yeah, so I got my first one. That would have been in 2017. I got a black one. I actually took a train from Buffalo to Chicago, found a one-owner one, which was super rare at the time. It had, I want to say 87,000 miles on it, and picked it up. That was my first one, man. That's what brought me into the Evo game.
Why have you transitioned from Evo to Evo? Basically, I feel like you get an Evo, you build it to your spec, and then you sell it off, and then you get into another one. Why do you do that?
Yeah, so for me, man, I just like the Evo cars. They're super dope, they're super fun to build, and then I like experimenting. So what I do on one build, I'll switch up for the next one. I just won't keep. I don't really keep changing the same parts on the same car. I'll build the car to how I like it, and then eventually you want to change some stuff and you want to go from there and build something new. So with the black one, I've always wanted to do a 62, 66 stock bottom, built head, and see how it ran and see how much power we could push, which we were limited to 550. Then the red one, I always wanted to do an FP red, so we did an FP red setup on there. And
right. So you don't get any sort of sentimental attachment to your builds? For example, me, if I get a car, bro, it's really hard for me to sell it to build something else. I just like keeping it and just not selling it.
Yeah. So for me, I do get attached a little bit, but then it's when I kind of did everything to the car I wanted to do, it's all right, let's move on to something else. You know what I'm saying? So it's my night.
So as far as the setup on this car, let's start off by the color. Isn't blue Bayou considered the rarest color for the Evos, or is it considered?
Yeah, I would say blue Bayou is considered one of the more rare colors for the Evos.
And basically, as far as setup, you basically did everything yourself down to the paint, correct?
Yep. Yeah, so my boy actually owned this car back in 2019, and I always liked it. This was actually the first blue Bayou Evo I ever seen. So when I had first seen it, I was like, damn, bro, that's a badass color. It's like it painted, and he actually told me, he was like, no, like this is a original factory color. So I was like, man, like, and I had my black Evo at that point. So yeah, I got it from, I actually wanted to buy it from him, but at the time he wasn't selling it. So then like fast forward years later, he sold it to his friend, and I ended up picking it up off his friend.
There was a story with this Evo beforehand, like it was making way more power, right? Like what's the story with this car?
So the car came originally from Florida. It used to make 1,200 horsepower, had like a built motor, a mechanical fuel pump on the cam, a lot of other stuff done to it, but they blew it at some point. So I guess then it sat in storage for quite a while, and then that's when my real good friend from New York picked it up, and then he kind of brought it back to life, built the head and all that, and then drove it for a few years, and then that's when he had sold it after that.
How many miles does it have?
Right now it's got 40,334. I picked it up with 37,000 on it.
Right. So the way that Jay built his car, just from what I've seen in person, is that he's very detail oriented, and he goes down to like the smallest little details to make sure that the car is clean. Were you always like that ever since you started building cars, or is that something that progressively like got better over time?
On that, I kind of feel like I've always been like a neat freak, like whether it's like my house or just me personally, like I've always been like OCD, like making sure like everything is clean, like less kind of is more, but you know, you always want like OEM plus, I feel like. So, you know, like, yeah, basically like the interiors are always clean. I don't really do too much like extra add-ons, like maybe a lip, skirts in the interior, you know, like keep it simple, keep it looking good, but you know, correct. Simple, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the setup exterior wise, and then we'll jump into the motor.
So the outside is pretty much all original paint. The front bumper's new, the rear bumper's new. It's got a Duluck lip on it, Rex Speed carbon skirt extensions and spats. It's pretty much stock on the outside. I redid a lot of like the stuff just to make it, like I buffed the whole car. I also painted the hood and the trunk, and I believe the mirrors for my friend when he had it. And then when I got it, obviously years later, I painted the front bumper and a couple other things on it, but the engine bay mainly. But most important part of the engine bay, I just got done 2 months ripping that thing apart.
Evos don't come with clear coat in the engine bay, huh? They're all like super matte.
Yeah, they're all like super matte finish.
Like this. So as far as the engine setup, is it fully built? What's going on with this motor?
Yeah, so the engine's basically a SPL. Shout out to my boy Ronnie from Speed Lab. It's a 2.0 long rod. Cali's crank, 88 millimeter, 156 Cali's Ultra Enforcer rods, TP1 DLC wrist pins. It's got balance shaft elite. The head's fully built. GSC everything from like the valves, seats, guides, super alloy intake and exhaust valves, busher intake, porter manifold. Drive-by-wire. If anybody's thinking about doing an Evo and you want to go drive-by-wire, do it. Super lovely, man. That pedal is just like butter, man. And GSC S2s for the cams. It's got an AGT 64 mil turbo on it, ball bearing, which I don't know if a lot of people are aware of, but you can basically send your FP red into Arginari with the SS housing, any FB, whether it's a zero, black, and he can actually turn that into his 64 mil turbo. So that's what I did with this one to save a little bit of money. So it was originally a FP red journal bearing, and now it's a 64 mil ball bearing turbo by AGT.
Now, as far as doing like all the work, you do all the work yourself, right? So talk a little bit more about like garage builds versus like, for example, shop builds. What's your opinion on that in regards to like cars?
Yeah, so honestly, in my opinion, bro, like the garage builds do just, I mean, the at-home garage builds do just as much as like a shop build. As long as like you're clean with like how you build your cars, as long as you know, keep like a clean work environment, don't like let a bunch of dust and debris get into obviously areas where you're gonna clearance bearings or clearance a crank, you know, or like putting your cam caps on for your cams. Like as long as those areas are clean and you make sure like that, you know, you keep a clean environment, you could build a house motor all day. I've done my last 3 cars, this one, the red one, and the black one, and pretty much all my other ones in a home garage. So
what advice can you give to new car enthusiasts that kind of want to learn platforms like an Evo?
In my opinion, just don't be afraid, just jump in, but do a lot of research. You know, like definitely look on forums. There's like unlimited amount of info out there for you to basically have a good idea before you start ripping a car apart. Okay, like, you know, this is how you do cams, and always check your torque specs. always check, if you have to RTV certain places on bolts, because you have some bolts, especially on Evos, like the engine mount that goes through the block where there's an oil galley, and if you don't thread lock that, obviously you're gonna get a leak. A bunch of other stuff. Just be thorough.
Would you recommend people to like get a job in the automotive, like for them to become mechanics to be able to get better, or do you think that do you think that kills off the hobby for a lot of people?
No, I'd say like if it's a hobby, definitely educate yourself on it as much as you can. So if that takes you to work in the shop, learning like the ins and outs of like just basic stuff, like changing gaskets, changing oil, like doing timing jobs. Like I feel like if you can learn the basics like that, then once you want to like further advance like into like the bigger, heavier stuff, it'll help, because every motor's got to get timed. Every motor needs stuff changed. Your fluids and all that. So I feel like you learn the basics, then you advance, and I tell anybody do it.
It's a skill in itself, but even like, for example, like myself and my journey, I've been learning over these last 8 years, and I still don't consider myself very good.
Yeah.
But it's like an ongoing thing, and you could always become better at some point, right?
For sure, man. Like you can never stop learning, and ask people questions. Like if you don't know what's going on, I'm always open. I always talk to anybody, any car enthusiast, because that's how I started, So when people ask me questions or like they're asking for like help, I'll be like, whatever I can answer, up to a certain point.
Right.
I'm not gonna be your personal crystal globe mechanic, diagnosing stuff over DMs and shit. But if you ever need questions and stuff, I'm always open.
As far as swaps, have you seen the K-Swapped Evo on Instagram lately?
Yeah. Shout out to RPT. I seen him doing his thing.
RPT. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about putting a K-swap in an Evo. Like, do you think that's like sacrilege, or do you think that's kind of dope?
I mean, it's definitely dope, because somebody, obviously for them to be like innovative and make all the parts for like to put that in an Evo. I did see you have to, it looks like bang the firewall back a bit, relocate some of the stuff on the drivetrain, and I think use a different rear end. But I mean, it's cool. Like. Okay. I'm a fan of the all-wheel drive, so if they can 100% make it reliable all-wheel drive, it actually might be dope to see what numbers they run on there,
What do you think is better as far as power out? Because you've had both K-Series and 4G63. What's your overall opinion on both motors?
So I like how the Ks pull. I like how they come into VTEC. I like how they can make 800 on a stock block with like barely anything done to them. So you got to give it to the Ks in that sense. I do love the 4G63. Obviously, they do have their limits at like a stock block range of like 500-600 on a bigger turbo. So Ks, I feel like, do have like some advantages in some aspects. I would honestly drive either or. If it's an Evo, I'd prefer it to stay 4G, but I'm not opposed to like the K swaps in them, because everybody's got to be innovative. And then I believe, like I think Vic was saying on his mini doc, that the parts for these are starting to just get like obsolete now. They're starting to be like harder to find. So at some point, like when all the 4Gs run out, what are we gonna put in them?
They're getting really expensive, right? Yeah. So let's talk about motors and how much their price has increased over the last, like, I want to say 5 years. Because I remember back then, like a 4G63 was like $200 for an Eclipse.
Yeah.
But now they're like thousands and thousands of dollars. What do you have to say about engines?
So even with Hondas, man, like I've noticed like the D series, I used to get those like a dime a dozen.
They're like $1,500
back in the day at the junkyard. They were like $300-400 if you go pull them out yourself. And now it's like, they're definitely like $1,300-1,400. The B series used to be like $2,500. Now I've seen them go for like $5,000-6,000. Same with Evo motors. Like in my time with the Evos, I think the cheapest ones I see would be like for a 4G63, maybe $1,500-1,700 back in like 2017, 2018. Now they're like easily $4,000, $3,500 for a block. So
So for anyone that wants to get an Evo, in regards to just like advice, what could you tell them in regards like how much, like expect them to pay a lot of money for an Evo to begin with, and then still have to modify it or even get it up to spec basically?
Yeah, in my opinion, I always say like look for an Evo that's got a clean body, but if it needs like mechanic work, like those are like the best ones because you can find one on like the cheaper scale.
Yeah.
Like my red one, I picked it up for 13. I put $6,000 into it and I sold it for like a good amount. But it was a fully done car after that. And instead of like, you know, buying a car for 20 and then say having to dump like another 7 or 8,000 into it, I would say like look for a clean body, clean title, not no rebuilt stuff. And then if you find something with a mechanic issue, just fix it, you know, or learn. Somebody's got a friend that knows how to fix an Evo, you know.
Where do you see the Evo market going in the next 5 to 10 years?
They've been skyrocketing, man. So,
Think so?
Yeah, they've been staying. I think they're at like a nice steady flat now where they're not like raising up too much more. But I would definitely say like, yeah, they're definitely going to be pretty expensive, close to super prices in the next.
Yeah, I think a lot of the JDM cars just went up overall, but I think it has to do with inflation as well, right?
Yeah, parts getting more expensive, and then now with the tariff BS. So,
do you plan on selling it ever? Or?
This is the one I try to get a hold of for a little bit. So I still want an Evo 5. Like, let's not don't get it twisted. I still want an Evo 5, but yeah, that's coming soon. I was trying to actually get an Evo 5 before I picked up this one, but it's sold at the auction, so you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any shout outs?
Just shout out all the homies, man. Shout out Miguel DSM for doing the mini doc round 2, you know, with the new 03 Evo. Shout out to King Ice Motorsport, Speed Lab. Shout out to all the SoCal Evo homies, man. Like keeping the Evo scene alive in SoCal, man.
Yes,
and
sir.
SoCal's definitely got one of the best Evo scenes, I feel like, on the planet. So if you guys out there have never experienced the SoCal Evo, like Thanksgiving Day cruise, Mitsubishi Owners Day, which is coming up, come out, man. Fly out for the weekend. Come chop it up with the homies, man.
Exactly.
Like, we'll show you around.
Huge scene out here.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right, guys. So that was Jay and his 2003 Blue Bayou Mitsubishi Evo. Where can they find you on social media?
All right, you can find me at Instagram, Jay Runs the City, the city with 2 Y's. Jay Runs the City on YouTube. Hit me up. Let's chop it up.
Thank you guys for watching.